your brain seeks out negative information and latches onto it because it's kind of evolved to deal with that information, which is why it's fundamentally one of the reasons why happiness for the brain is not something that it's like, yes, absolutely, I must achieve that, because it's like, it doesn't, for your brain, whilst it's not nice to feel nervous, anxious, scared, at least it knows what that feeling is because it's trying to keep you safe. And those feelings are a result of your brain trying to keep you safe from these threats that it's perceiving in the world that often aren't real. But we've got to develop that a little bit of medical cognition to understand that actually that's what's happening. That's why we are feeling this thing about the world, and that my brain is just trying to protect me from all these threats and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's just you just start to understand that that pursuit of something like that is the falsehood. It's not something that's pursuable. It's something that you can make happen, and it's something that you can support on in every day. Every day you want to make yourself live inside a happy, healthy body and brain, and that's
Exactly right. Hello, and welcome back to One Brain at a Time. I'm your host, Adam Wright, and I'm joined by the fantastic, as always, wonderful Mr. Andy Feist. How are you, Andy, today?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. I'm tired. I think I felt a big difference. I don't know about you, man, but by doing this on a Monday morning instead of a
Yes,
Friday morning, like,
back on a. Last week we did it on Friday. This week it's back on a Monday.
yeah. So my whole vibe is a bit lower, just because
I
it's
think
just a
that's.
Monday, and
But we did
and
it. We did
yeah,
January. It is
we did
done.
January,
We did
man.
January.
Yeah, to be honest, psychologically, that is quite a big
It's
thing,
big.
which is nice. So I'm really glad about that. And February's all right. We've got nice things coming up in weekends to come, and going to Butlins next week with my pals. So that'll be
Oh,
a laugh.
lovely.
So that'll be nice, man. So just getting through it, yeah. And sometimes it is just getting through it. Come on, man, just get through it. And that's not. I've said it, and I've sung this job's praises a million times, but you're allowed to feel like, yeah, man, I'm just a bit done in for. I'm tired. Um,
Hmm.
Psychologically draining sometimes this work, isn't it? And I think um I love it. I love it more than anything. And we've got a busy week this week, which is great, but it's a challenge, man. It's a challenge, and
For sure.
some of the things we have to talk about and discuss, and some of the client work we do is tough, man. So
Mm.
I'm here for the challenge, here for it, but forgive me for being a bit I'm
Well, I think
tired.
that's part of why I think, we want this podcast to be very authentically, like some days we'll be up and bouncing off the rafters. Like I think last week's episode was very much
Yeah,
that energy, like very, very high energy. This week's one is going to be a bit more subdued just because we are in a bit more of a subdued mood, and that's,
for sure.
we're not faking this. This is a genuine, like, this is how we're feeling at the time. And I will just apologize in advance for any audio issues because they are building a wall outside my window. I didn't realize that until we started recording. So if you hear some banging and clattering, it's not Andy falling over, it's me
Big city
outside my
boy
window.
now, man. He's got the city noise to come
Can
with
I
the city
say,
living,
or
man.
can I
So
say,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So just an involvement in advance. I'll try and sort it out as much as best I can. But if you hear it when I'm talking, they're literally probably 5 meters away from me, just building a wall. I don't know
So
why it
fun,
takes
mate.
makes so
Can't
much
hear
noise.
can't hear absolutely nothing. So you're all
Well,
golden.
that's some fantastic news. But yes, to keep on our to keep on our lovely theme we've been doing of just foreshadowing by just going straight into the episode. We want to talk about happiness today. We want to talk about happiness and the idea that happiness is a myth. Dun dun dun! It's not real. No, that's not true. Obviously, happiness is real, but I think it's a very
Let's
lovely,
become one of those
depressing start.
podcasts. Let's
Yeah,
just become one of those
yeah, we just bust myths, and it's just
bust
increasingly
myths.
rude, like
Yeah,
horrible myths
yeah,
to bust.
yes,
Like love isn't real, guys, and all that
yeah.
stuff.
It's
But
only a
no,
chemical reaction in the brain. That's all it
exactly,
is,
it's not
man.
real. No, love is real, guys. Love is real. But yeah, so what we want to talk about today is about happiness, right? So we always get in our first episode of this new incarnation of the show, we talked about New Year's resolutions and how lots of people's New Year's resolutions for this 2026 are going to be happier, which is a fantastic goal. Lovely. We all like to be happier. But a lot of the work we do in talking about the neuroscience is understanding that actually happiness, your brain is not actually that interested in happiness, and fundamentally your brain doesn't care about happiness. Happiness is one of those things for your brain, maybe nice to have, but sometimes, but it's far more focused on basically survival. Okay, so at the fundamental level, as we always do, if we bring it back to evolution, your brain is not evolved for happiness, is the kind of headline, right? Because your brain's fundamentally trying to keep you alive. Same with your body. Your body and brain are fundamentally trying to keep you alive. It's not like the end goal is going to be happiness. And the reason why this is because obviously if you had a happy caveman, then or a depressed caveman who is more anxious and scared about the world, that actually in that case the anxious depressed caveman who's more scared about the world is more likely to be wary of going outside, wary of going into forests and stuff where there might be saber-toothed tigers and stuff. Therefore, that anxious, depressed, nervous caveman is maybe more likely to survive even than the happy caveman. So happiness is not something that we are evolved to be pursuing and to be achieving.
Yeah, it's a common thing that we all go, yeah, man, I just want to be a bit happier. I want to be this and be that. And
Mm,
it's an interesting thing to talk about, man, because controllables and uncontrollables in our life, and to some extent, happiness, it's not a choice. That's the wrong word because it isn't, right? It's
mm,
definitely not a choice. But there are obviously, as we've said before, there are behaviors and habits that you can do every single day to give yourself the best chance of that feeling, of continuity of that feeling. So
yeah,
there are controllables surrounding happiness that need to be put in place to feel that and to experience that. But it's just interesting, man, because I know like my grandparents, they wouldn't have been sitting down in a group of them down the con club having a chat about happiness. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't have happened. So it's nice that there's been a shift there and a change there.
yeah,
So
for sure.
that's what we're doing. Why we're doing what we're doing.
I think that's a great point actually, in terms of like just the novelness of talking about happiness, and maybe even like the kind of the westernized, to use the kind of outdated terminology for the developed quote developed world.
Mm.
But like happiness is a pursuit that's kind of very very middle class, very modern, very like, ooh, I'm going to do paddle and become happy. Like that's kind of I think you're entirely right in that, and I think that there's a bunch of different aspects to this we want to talk about today. But I think there's also this idea that we live in societies on the whole, most of society, most especially, I'm talking from Brighton, you're talking from Southampton in the United Kingdom, one of the safest countries in the world, despite the fact of that, with, falling crime, historically low crime rates and all that stuff, fantastic NHS, we still feel the world outside is extremely dangerous, even though it's the most safe it's been in
Yeah,
history, and in fact, some people are more nervous about today because of the avalanche of news we can receive about the world than they were about when they were younger, even though the world was statistically a more dangerous place then.
yeah,
And I think that it feeds into this, it's a slightly off topic theme, but like the idea that your brain is very good at convincing you of things that are not true, and
yeah.
it doesn't, just because you know a fact to be true doesn't mean it feels true. And that's why we can often get trapped in thinking that, oh, it's all bad and getting worse. And it's a kind of cycle of cynicism and stuff like that, and believing that it's getting more dangerous and all that stuff. And that's just not the case.
Beliefs are stronger than opinions and facts. Like our belief system is more unwavering than our actual knowledge of things
Oh, for
because
sure. 100%.
and we often speak about that. Like when someone goes against our belief system, it's more of a personal attack and more of an grievance to us than anything else. So that's why people get their backs up and
For sure.
that's
And people completely wrap themselves up in that, in beliefs that they think are based in reality, that are based in
yeah,
facts, that are not. It becomes a personality thing, doesn't it? It becomes
it
like,
does.
I am this, I believe this, even though, and then it's really hard to convince someone of that, because it's not a fact you're convincing them to change their view on. It's something they've based
Yeah,
their personality around. It's something that, and that's why
which
this
is
work
seen as
is.
an attack, isn't it?
For sure, exactly. And that's why this work can be a challenge sometimes. And it's really important to understand that, that idea we always talk about is neuroplasticity. Like if we had I think we should set up a bingo system for this show. And it's like neuroplasticity is going to be one of them. Us complaining about, we're talking about Spurs being terrible is another one. Like just every single time. Although decent result yesterday, I think, for you. Anyway, this is not the football section. But the idea that like every single thing you do, you are practicing every single thing. So if you're practicing a view that kind of practicing a belief inverted to a fact, you're going to get better and better at believing the belief and not better at receiving the information. And it's almost like, also, if you aren't then constantly updating your opinions based in the facts, then you're also not getting better at doing that when new facts emerge, if that makes sense.
We're all guilty of this in terms of
For sure.
seeing patterns. Like we're all really, our brains are really well equipped to seeing, noticing patterns. So if you believe something, and I do, I think it is pertinent to talk about in the world of politics at the moment. And this isn't a politics podcast. I've got zero
Yet.
authority to talk about it as a general member of the a voting public. So I've got as much right as any of you lot. Um, and I just think it's so if if you believe something, right, and you wholeheartedly believe something, what your brain's going to do is you will notice content, you will see videos, pictures, news stories that just reinforce that viewpoint, right?
Mm,
I've done it. I do it now. I do it with my viewpoint. I'll make sure the content I'm consuming backs up what I'm saying and what I think and what I feel. Does that mean I'm right? No, it does not. No, it
mm,
does not. But to have the awareness of that and go, I will be more open and susceptible to different viewpoints, even though they're all wrong. And I just think it's important to be able to look at and say that's why those belief systems are really hard to move away from,
for sure.
because all of a sudden the facts you are getting are
Mm,
from that viewpoint and that conscious bias, perhaps. So, you
exactly
know,
right. Exactly right. And I think that is such an important. We talk about, the reason that often that our facts and views of the world are based in often negative information about, is because there's a fundamental truth of the brain that we are negatively biased as a
yeah.
species, right? Your brain is not only more prepared for, it's more expecting and it's going to react faster to negative information. And to answer why that is again, go back to evolution. If we react instantly immediately to anything, assuming it's going to be trying to attack us, we are going to survive more of those situations than if we were of a more calm, relaxed, it's fine disposition. We were then, if it was something threatening to us, like a snake or a tiger, we would have then been attacked by that and potentially not
Mm.
survived to pass that relaxed disposition on to our, to generations beyond. So the idea that your brain seeks out negative information and latches onto it because it's kind of evolved to deal with that information, which is why it's fundamentally one of the reasons why happiness for the brain is not something that it's like, yes, absolutely, I must achieve that, because it's like, it doesn't, for your brain, whilst it's not nice to feel nervous, anxious, scared, at least it knows what that feeling is because it's trying to keep you safe. And those feelings are a result of your brain trying to keep you safe from these threats that it's perceiving in the world that often aren't real. But we've got to develop that a little bit of metacognition to understand that actually that's what's happening. That's why we are feeling this thing about the world, and that my brain is just trying to protect me from all these threats and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's just you just start to understand that that pursuit of something like that is the falsehood. It's not something that's pursuable. It's something that you can make happen, and it's something that you can support on in every day. Every day you want to make yourself live inside a happy, healthy body and brain, and that's more of the goal, isn't it, than actual
Exactly right.
happiness? Because that idea that you just want to be happy, that's amazing. And yes, we do, all of us, we all say that, fine, like I want to be happier, but well, how are you going to do it, man? And how are you going to, like, what does that even mean? Like,
Yeah.
emotions are complicated, feelings are complicated. We feel all these different things all at the same time. One day you feel this, the next day you feel something completely different. So how are you going to find the content feeling and that continuity for that? And I think that's the goal, isn't it? That's just I think when we say we want to feel happier, what we really mean is we don't want to feel like absolute
Awful.
rotten. We don't want
Yeah.
to feel bad. We don't want to feel upset. And you hear people saying, "I'm sick of feeling like this, man." And
Yeah.
you've been there in your life, and you'd be like, "I'm just sick of feeling like this. I'm just done with it, man." So that's what we mean. We just don't want to feel those negative things constantly, because the weight that has on you and the impact it has on your general life is huge. So
For sure.
yes, you want to be happier. No, you just don't want to be in a negative headspace, which is
I
why
think
this
exactly.
is, I think, even more pertinent, because we're not showing people how to be happy. We're telling people how to manage hurt, upset, angst in a healthier way
Mm.
that gives you a good chance of being happy.
Yeah, and it's like, happiness isn't a target. We talked about, joked about it before. Like, it's not. something you're just going to achieve and you've done it. Okay, I've done been happy now.
2026, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah. It's,
What about
it's
2027? What's
yeah.
going
There
on
was
now?
what's our goal that year exactly? But there is a way, understanding that it's not something that first of all your brain is necessarily trying to achieve. Like it's not in
Yeah.
its not its priority. Its priority is keeping you alive. If it doesn't always feel like that, it sometimes feels like it's trapping you in a very very negative space. But it's fundamentally just trying to keep you alive. In doing that, and you're not in control of it. But we can kind of take back a little bit of that control, and we can. That's what we're talking about. But as you said, like kind of trying to build the understanding that okay, if we can't ever achieve quote unquote happiness, why don't we try and find it in every day? And that's
Yeah.
kind of what we want to talk about. That's what we want to talk about this session is well-being. We talk about the 12 rocks of well-being in every single episode. But I think that one of the things that's always very comes across well-being is very very good for people who are most of the people who are actually already kind of fine, but they build it in anyway and they feel even better on those days. And let's be honest, lots of what we do is telling people to do your rocks of well-being even when times are fine. Obviously do it when times are negative, but I think that there's an element that we need to talk about, which is that when times are difficult, it can be really, really hard to get out of bed in the morning. And, not to go too much into detail, but that is an experience I'm currently having through some things happening that it means that, you know, 4 months ago, 12 Rocks of Wellbeing, smashing, 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 easy. Like it was, and I was flying. It felt really, really good. And now I'm still doing all those things, but I feel like I'm dragging myself to do them,
Yeah.
every single
You're
day. And
forcing
I
yourself, aren't you?
exactly, and I do feel better after, this morning. It's 9:37 when I'm saying this exact line. On Monday morning, I went for a run this morning. I cannot tell you how little I wanted to go for that run this morning. I did not want to go. Like, and I did, and I'm glad I did because I enjoyed it after the fact, but I did not enjoy the run. I did not enjoy waking up in the morning. That's a habit and that's a routine. And if I didn't have the habit, if I hadn't built that habit, I would not have done that run because there's no amount of willpower in that moment that would have been able to force me to do it. It was just because it was a habit and I knew, I kind of just let my habit take control of me and let me go for that run. But I just think it's really important that we point out that this stuff is really hard because the well-being especially is something that is when it's tough, even the well-being stuff is probably not going to make you feel loads better in those
No.
days. You know, it's impossible to know how bad you would have felt if you hadn't done it, and we can guarantee you will feel better if you do it.
Yeah.
But it's not like on a terrible day, if you've lost someone, you do the 12 rocks of being like, I feel fine now. It's
Mm.
not that simple. And I think it's really important that
It's
we
not.
are really clear about that. It's obviously on those days, it's hard to find any happiness.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that point in a second, but it's still so, so important that, depending on whatever situation you are in right now, listening to this episode, try and build these 12 rocks of well-being habits in. If you are in a very, very good space, then build them in anyway, because then they'll be there for when you need them in a darker time. If you're in a dark time, we need to try and build them now. Like we just need to try and build them because it won't make you feel, it won't lift that weight off your shoulders, but it will make you feel just that tiny bit better. And it will forming that habit gives you something else to do in those moments.
Definitely. And I think that's spot on. And we say it so often. It's not doing it on your good days that is the benefit. It's doing it on your good days, developing and forming the habit so that when you do have your bad times, your bad moments, you are just more accustomed to putting yourself through that little bit more adverse action of dragging yourself up and going for a run, dragging yourself to do this and do that and be sociable and connecting with people, even when you don't feel like it. Because it's when you don't feel like it is when you need it the most. You can put yourself in a social isolation station if you just cut that out. You
Hey,
put yourself in you
no, I'm not
can
cutting that.
you can sort of you can just sort of like when you feel down and low, you don't want to see no one, you don't want to face things, you don't want to face the world. And
Yeah.
that means in its truest sense of I'll just stay at home today because I don't want to face any of
Mm,
that stuff, man. So
mm.
it's in those moments where, you can live in a place where you are down and out and you just sit in that space and you might get out of it eventually just from time. But if you're not forcing the fact and you're not forcing your hand and you're not putting yourself through things that are difficult but beneficial for yourself, that process will just be so much slower. Take it from me, man.
Mm.
Years of it of just not doing the right thing, not doing the right habits, letting myself be in a negative headspace. The comfortability of that was enormous. The
Yeah.
pull to staying in bed all day was enormous, and that was stronger than any other feeling I had. So to develop and move away from that, the dark days I have now are just easier to deal with because I'm doing the right things more often than not. And there'll be days where it's weak and I lapse in terms of things I shouldn't be doing or whatever, but it's just still okay. More often
Mm.
than not, I'm finding the pockets of happiness in every single day. Yeah. I've always said this,
Exactly
and I
right.
say to my clients, no matter how turgid and rubbish your day is, do you enjoy dinner? I do every single day. So,
Exactly.
smallest things, man. Find the
Yeah.
smallest pockets of happiness you've had a day. I had a little giggle with my pal. Yeah, that was sandwiched between 3 hours of absolute horrible
Mm.
upset, but I did, and
Yeah.
it's the gratitude and appreciation, and we'll talk about some of. I know we're going to go on to a bit of journaling and GLADEN as an activity, which is just about gratitude and appreciation. But to force yourself to rewire that neural architecture by changing the way you think and feel about things. And
Yeah.
the more you do that, the stronger that neural network becomes, the more you feel like that, and the more that
Mm.
you've physically changed that and brought that into existence, this new way of optimistically thinking about things and fixating not on the negatives like we are so comfortable in doing, but
Yeah.
fixating on the good, the good in our lives. And sometimes that those good things feel that big, man,
Mm.
and the bad things feel enormous.
Yeah.
But I like to think that most of us have got some good going on. So just
Yeah.
just work with it and just be kind to yourself. And a good way to be kind to yourself is doing the right things every day.
Yeah.
Because if you
Exactly right.
don't, you are being hard to yourself because you're going to find it really difficult to come out of any dark place. You're going to find it really difficult to come out of.
Yeah. So, I think what you said there, a couple of things I want to come back, it's just so exactly right that your brain, it doesn't feel like it, but it's very comfortable being very sad or very, dejected,
Yeah,
longing for something. Your brain is very good at that feeling, very good at staying in that space. So the bad news with this, as we talk about all the time, neuroplasticity, if we don't challenge and change that feeling, we are going to just stay in it. We are just going to stay in it, and we're going to get better and better and better at just staying in that space, and it's going to get harder and harder to rip ourselves out of that space. And one of the most deceptive and most kind of it's not benevolent, it's not mean, but like it feels mean. Part of it is that in those moments, though, what we're talking about is your brain's very good at convincing you that that is exactly what you want. No, I don't want to go to do this thing right now. I want to feel like this because I need the rest. I need to, to think about it. I need to just be in this space a bit longer. Your brain is trying to convince you of that. It's not true, but your brain is. I can't describe it any other way than I'm now talking about how important it is that we understand that our brain is really convincing it. And I was in that exact space this morning with my brain convincing me that I did not want to do anything to try and challenge and change how I was feeling. And it's so important that we understand that we need to. You just need to in those moments, and that's why it's so important that whatever position you are in right now, you need to build the well-being stuff now. Because the only reason that I challenged and changed that feeling this morning is because I had it as a habit. If I did not, I would have stayed in bed, and I might not be doing this podcast right now. I don't know. That's where we're at. So
but the hardest bit is that you would have been like a bit if you would have just thoroughly enjoyed, like genuine in a
yeah,
sad, depressing way, would have been so pleased that you are in bed. You would have convinced yourself so hard-heartedly, like, oh man, I'm so comfy, I'm so warm, man. This is so nice. But you would have felt this feeling in the back of your throat of just guilt and shame and oh,
and
I
then it
suck.
compounds the feeling
It
of
does.
it compounds the feeling of that awful feeling. Especially if you
Yeah.
have positive habits and you start not doing them, it compounds the feeling of, oh no, I'm really not out. I'm out of sorts here. Like, oh man, it's a horrible
You
cycle.
prove to yourself you're out of sorts, right? You've almost said to yourself, I know I don't feel great. Oh my God, I really don't feel great because I didn't even get myself up this morning. And I
Yeah,
think like
yeah,
that's the kindness aspect of things, like being kind to yourself. I thought I was doing myself a service by not facing anything and just avoiding and staying in bed and doing all these things, right? And I wasn't. That was the worst thing I'd done for myself. Literally the
yeah,
worst. I couldn't
exactly,
have been
exactly.
nastier to myself, man, because it just took that extra amount of time and energy and effort that when I did eventually want things to change, oh man, that was tough because it's like I've
Mm.
not built any of these positive habits. I've started from scratch here to get these in a better place to make myself feel better. But you know, but when you're in a better place, like you have been, Adam, and you are balancing the positive with the negative, and you have built in your habits to force yourself in those bad moments to do them and to maintain them is the kindest thing you can do to yourself. And that's what I say to you lot listening. Like just be, I constantly say it to my clients, they must be sick to death of the sight and voice of me, man. But just being kind to yourself in whatever that means. And that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean being kind to yourself as in
Being
no,
kind
don't
doesn't
do
actually
that.
mean listening to yourself
No,
necessarily, does it? Exactly.
100%.
Sometimes being kind to yourself is, no, I'm going to go for the run.
100%. Fight that urge to just go on your phone for 5 hours and play
Mm.
your Xbox and not do your revision. Fight that urge to be
Yeah.
angry at your mum and dad because you're just angry at life, and
Mm.
just have a chat with them openly, honestly, vulnerably, and overcome that challenge in a healthier, more effective way where you can see some self growth and development, which is the journey you're going to be on for your whole life, man. And start now, innit? Start now.
Exactly
Start
right.
now.
I
Start doing
think
the
it's
right
such a
things
great
now.
point that like saying be kind to yourself is something that, I hope lots of people preach, which is obviously a positive thing. Many people don't practice it, but I also think sometimes people confuse what we're talking about being kind to yourself as like kind of an excuse to just allow yourself to not do things, which
Well, I will have that donut for breakfast. I will have,
yeah,
I will have
be
that
kind to
whiskey.
yourself. I'll have, don't do that. Like, but actually, being truly kind to yourself is to do the things that you know you should be doing
Yeah,
for yourself because
100%.
you know it'll make you feel better. Like if you have a donut for breakfast and don't get out of bed till 10 and aren't very productive and just scroll on your phone, that's being kind to yourself in the moment because it means you'd have to face the
Yeah, it
challenge
is.
of doing whatever you're going to do, but you're not going to feel much better after that, are you? You're going to feel worse. And so actually being kind to yourself is doing the hard thing in that moment. And it's like, I think that's such an important point. It's like be kind to yourself is do your well-being. Ironically, the well-being doesn't always feel like the thing you want to do, even though it will make you feel better. But being kind to yourself is journaling, is going for a run, is walking outside, even when it's horrible. That is being kind to yourself. That not necessarily just doing what you feel like doing, which
Definitely,
is such an
definitely.
important distinction to make.
We've spoken a lot. So for the last bit of the pod, I think we'll do a little bit of chat about journaling, shall we? Just because we've done
Let's
a
do
lot of
it.
chat about exercise, we've done a
We
lot of
always talk
chat
about exercise,
about
yeah.
diet and what you put into your body has a massive impact, and this whole idea of emergence, full stop, right? Of what you do affects positively and negatively your body and brain. So make sure you do the right things. We've done a lot of that. So let's talk about journaling, I think, because it's something that is, I can picture it now, man. I can picture just some geezers in there, middle aged, just listening to this and going, "What are these two young bucks talking about, man?" Like just writing my things down. What are you on about? I ain't doing that. I ain't got the time for that. I got to put up this shelf. Um, and I just think,
I love the image you painted of our audience. It's
yeah,
middle-aged
yeah,
men put
yeah,
up
yeah.
shelves.
The four people that are listening have just
Oh my God, it's
obsessed with
four
this
now.
category. Is it
It
four?
was two last week.
Two last
You
week.
said it was
We've
one
grown.
and then it's two.
We've
Oh,
doubled.
look at
That is
that.
like next week and all. So yeah, like that. But for real, like this idea of and well, I don't. I could go closer to home. I could go to my friends. If I sat down and said, "Let's all just start writing down our thoughts and feelings in a journal," I'll get laughed at wherever we are. I get laughed, So
Yeah.
you can bear with it, right? If you are someone that is would be anti this from the sound of it and what it sounds like, then that's okay. You're
Mm.
more than entitled to your opinion, but don't knock it until you hear about it. Don't knock it until you try it, right? I'm a 24-year-old geezer who has had to become more vulnerable just so I could improve my mental state, become someone more open, and become someone who is more susceptible to this sort of support and self help that a lot of people
Mm.
see as
Yeah.
classical nonsense. So stick with it and just hear us out. And I'll pass you over to my very handy colleague, Mr. Adam Wright.
I think anyone who has journaled knows that it helps basically to write
Yeah,
your thoughts and feelings down. But the reason why basically is because it allows you to sit above your thoughts and feelings in that moment. It's a little bit, it's not the same thing, but it's a little bit like meditation. And we call it metacognition, where you're feeling certain things, you're but when you write them down, when you try and trace what the emotion is, kind of what caused it and how it's making you feel, you are you're sitting above that thing and allowing yourself to notice it. And the reason why it's so important is because in the brain, let's talk about the brain bit for a second, right? So your worry system is kind of just behind your eyes, which is the bit we're often when we're negative thinking, spiraling, anxiety, that's all contained kind of here. But by just noticing and transforming and kind of tracing those feelings, we literally shift to where our localization of our thinking is from the bit right up front of our head to this bit up here, which is kind of your neocortex, your insight circuits, which allows, first of all, allows you to stop being in that part of your brain, which means you immediately stop feeling as nervous and anxious, even a little bit, because you're not in that part of your brain where it's generating those feelings. But also it stops them that neuroplasticity process of developing and strengthening that part of your brain at the front. It allows to strengthen the top part of your brain at the top instead. But most of the time, in a sensory sense now, we live in emotions, living through emotions without noticing anything about how we're feeling in the moment. If I asked you, listener, how do you feel right now? Or what feelings do you feel? You probably would have to think about it for a minute. Like, how do I feel? Do I feel a bit Maybe I feel a bit gloomy because it's Monday. Maybe I feel hungry because I haven't eaten in a little while. Like it takes you a little while to investigate that feeling, right? You've got a bunch of emotions and feelings floating around in your body all the time, but we don't necessarily notice it. And it sounds weird, but emergence tells us that if we are angry, we are sometimes angry without even realizing we've become angry. We are now angry because something's happened, some external environment event has happened to us, or we've just been on time to eat or something. We are now angry, but we have no idea we're angry. So we are then angry to people around us, but we haven't noticed that feeling. So I want to really caveat this. Writing down your negative thoughts and feelings and the things that have been the struggle and challenge today is super, super important. Absolutely. I do it all the time. No, one of the things I've really tried to develop over the last few months is a journaling habit, and it's one of the things I really enjoy. Like I don't always want to journal because I don't always want to write. It's effort to write, but it is good. It's good for me, and it's a nice thing to do. But sometimes, talking about the negative bias of our brains, when we journal all the time, we end up only writing down negative thoughts, negative experiences we're having. And then one of the great things about journaling is that we can go back and look at previous journals and see our previous experiences. But if we only ever write down the negative experiences we're having in the day, it reinforces this idea that we always feel a certain way about something, which is not true. Like, even in your worst day, there will be some moments of joy, as Andy said earlier. There's maybe a tiny, tiny little patch of it, like someone was nice to you at a coffee shop, like, I don't know, it could be a tiny patch of it, but there will always be some joy, even in the darkest day. But if we only ever write down those awful, awful experiences and never ever write down those positive things, then we are possibly going to strengthen the idea that we are just a sad person who no one likes and no one ever talks to, and we've always felt like this. Because none of that's true.
You've basically got three main skills of emotional regulation. Okay. You've got this idea of emotional agility, emotional granularity, and emotional hygiene, right? So, what emotional agility is basically understanding that 1 minute you feel this, the next minute your emotions can shift. Yeah, that's all that means. Okay. Emotional granularity is what journaling is all about. It is linking events to emotions. This happened to me today. It made me feel like this, right? That's a strong skill of metacognition and self awareness. And then you've got your emotional hygiene, which again is what journaling hits, which is dealing and processing your emotions. Okay. Very important stuff. So GLADEN. So what GLADEN is, okay? So it's similar to journaling, right? But it's a more of a structured piece of journaling. Okay, so
Yeah.
writing down every single day one thing that was good, one thing that you learned, one thing you achieved, one thing that delighted you, an emotion you experienced, and something new that took place that day. Okay, so what you're doing when you're practicing this gladden, okay, is you're understanding that there are things in your day, every single day, that fit into those categories. And then you start to actually see positive and light in those good days, and you can see positive and light in those worst days because you're forcing yourself to remember, oh, well, I thought I had a difficult day, but actually, you know what, that was quite good today. Well, I did learn something new today. What did I achieve today? Well, I did that. That was a real tough question in school, and I smashed that, man. Yeah, it was tough, but I did it. So you achieved that, right? What emotions did you experience? Well, Yeah, I did feel a bit anxious, but then I did go for that run and I felt a bit better for it. It didn't cure me like that, but I felt a bit better. And all those sorts of things. So GLADEN as an activity is a really positive way of journaling, because Adam's right. If we said to you, go and just start journaling now, the likelihood is that first entry is going to be filled with negative thoughts and emotions and experiences that you had in the day. So that's so telling in how our brains operate and are wired, because we would just straight away go, well, this happened and it was absolute dog, mate. So what we want to do is say, well, practice it, construct it, and structure it in a way that forces you to think more positively about the day you've had. And try to say to someone after a really long, hard day, what did you enjoy? Like, you've got to do it yourself, because it's, it's how you feel when you're down. You know how you feel when you're upset, hurt, annoyed, grumpy, man. And it's in those moments trying to think positively is really tough, which is why developing this habit will only do wonders for you. Because you can look back, as Adam said, in a month's time at your entries and go, I thought I've had a difficult month, but this has also happened. That's really positive. This has happened, and
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's not dead weight, dead time. You've still grown and developed and succeeded and achieved things in a difficult period of your life, and that's what GLADEN is so wonderful for, man. I think it's such a wonderful
It
way of
is. It is.
perspective shifting and developing that metacognition that we bang on and harp on about so much, developing who you are and understanding who you are, how you feel, how you think, how you operate.
I think that the temptation is like really big things that are really fun that happen and they're really nice. Like, um, yeah, cool. But it's also the very, very small things that happen that you make you feel better. Like I've just got my journal up. I do a digital one, and I can see that as I've said, I've had a difficult time. But one of the things I really enjoyed in the last week, as I went for a run and I saw Jonathan Bailey on the seafront, just
Man,
walking. I went for a walk. I didn't say hello to him, but I saw him. That was something that made me joy. That was what 3 seconds of my life running past this famous person who's like
yeah.
international superstar. That made me very
What a
happy.
geezer, mate. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we're now best friends. We go to the pub. We don't. I wish.
What a
But
story that
that
would
that
be,
is
mate.
those tiny little things. Like
Get him on the pod.
Jonathan Bailey. If you're listening to this, I saw you on the beach. Come and pod next to me. Imagine next week it's just
Oh,
me and then Jonathan Bailey just here.
that's your goal. That's the task I'm setting you, man. When you
Oh
see these
man,
famous people, you go up and you harass them, harangue them to come on the pod.
I will. I will. And if
It's the only
anyone
way we're
listening,
going to get massive.
exactly, if anyone listening knows any famous people, then please send them the pod. Get them to come on. We'll take
I'm
any famous
this
people.
far away from bombarding Joe Marler with DMs, mate.
Maybe
This
that's a podcast collab of the century right there. Let's do it.
I love him, man.
Let's do it.
He lived near where I grew up, and I'm not that there anymore. But Joe, I still used to see you around Tesco's and the coffee shop, mate. I
Really?
wish I'd come up to you, man. Yeah,
From the
yeah.
place we grew up?
Hartfields, mate. Hartfields, mate. Yeah,
No.
man. All the time.
Really?
All the time. I
I
saw him
didn't
there
know that.
loads, mate.
Oh,
But
wow.
come on, man. We need to get some famous people on. But yeah, that I think it's important, man. Just
It's
that
just
sort of
those small
Gladden, and
things,
it
those,
is. It just
you
say
know,
like, well,
exactly.
I watched an episode of this and I enjoyed that episode of Teddy, and
Exactly. That's it.
I had a
I had
nice
a
bit of
nice
dinner.
coffee, you
Yeah.
know? I had a
And
nice
sometimes you're scraping
breakfast.
barrel, right? Sometimes you are having such a difficult time. They
Sure.
are literally the only things you have enjoyed.
Yeah.
So to find solace and comfort in that is important, and to
Exactly,
find
but what you're in a neuroscience sense, what you're doing there though is you are strengthening the part of your brain that looks for those experiences. You're looking for the positive, and you
yeah,
get better and better at looking for the positive. Because to loop it back in a brilliantly seamless way, talk with about the start is, we are very very good at looking for negatives in our lives and in the world. But we can retrain our brains to be better at looking for the positives. So by doing GLADEN every day, you can get better and better at looking for those moments of joy, even in the difficult bits. And then when you're having a better time, you are then happier because you're more ready and more ready to experience happiness and joy. And then you can never achieve it, but you can have more happiness in your day because you're able to not only you're not looking for it more, but you're kind of like experiencing it more because you can see it more in the world around you because your perception has changed because you've got different neural architecture that allow you to experience the wealth of joy that there is even in the darkest times and in the best positive times. So
beautifully put, man. Spot on. That's absolutely right. We should start being. I watched the. This is not to do with the pod now, so you might as well call it a day. But just I watched the Stranger Things making of documentary, and
is that? I didn't know that
it
was
just
one.
made me want to be a writer, man.
Oh, well.
I want to start writing, but
Side
I can't.
hustle.
I don't like writing like in the way they have to do for shows, and that bores me,
Well,
man.
with like character says this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
not for me. Not for me.
but I
Well,
want to write.
let's make the podcast big, and then Andy can write some little sketches for the YouTube, and we can act and direct in them. That would be fun.
That'd be nice. But yeah, no, thank you guys. I appreciate your time as always. And I
Thank
hope
you.
you have a really good week.
Have
And
a good week, and I hope that shelf gets put up all right.
well, that shelf, boy, get it done. But write about it. Long live prosper you lot. And yeah,
Thank you very much.
I'll see you guys next week.
Have a lovely week. See you next week. Take care. Bye.